Welcome back, Officers Republic. Of course, on the roll, Police Chief APGAINS. We're talking about the number one most important thing that you can be doing to win more grand arenas, and it's ships. And I know you guys are like, oh my god, it's ships, I must turn away. But my previous ship videos have been teaching you, and now it's my turn to be taught by myself. It's a little convoluted, but stick with me. I promise it'll make sense. We're about 5.7 million GP. Our opponent is a little over 9 million GP. So obviously there's a little bit of a discrepancy, but it should have been an easy GAC victory for us, except for one thing. I messed up one of the unmess-upable counters. I took my Profundity against the Executor and actually lost, right? And for those of you guys who don't know, one of the most effective strategies for under GP'd players is to go the ship-only defense, right? You're not going to, this guy has every Galactic Legend, every Conquest character, 9 million GP, you know, damn near 1 million GP off, double my account. I can't place a defense. I put like Gear 7s. This is effectively ship-only. I put Gear 7s, and oh, there's actually a couple of Relic characters that I didn't use. But these are basically max banners. We give our opponent max banners in the hope that we full clear ships, and they can't. Now, obviously, his ships are much better than mine, except for he hasn't quite unlocked the Profundity yet. I gave him relatively easy ships to fight. He dropped Executor as expected because I anticipated him to place his Executor. We saved everything for offense. We blow through, and then for mathematical purposes, if we win this battle, we win the GAC. There was nothing that he could have done if we won this battle to... There's nothing he could have possibly done mathematically to beat us, aside from also clearing us. And it's one of the most, effective strategies for those people who have to punch up, because a lot of times, you're not end game players. You're going to have to punch up. So let's talk about where I went wrong and how you guys can kind of learn from my mistakes. So obviously, I've been a big proponent of ships for a very, 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 very long time. But I've kind of gotten into this recent trend, and yes, I unlocked the Profundity, which has helped a lot. But I've gotten into this recent trend where, like, oh, I'm hitting the Smuggler team, I'm hitting the Maldalorian team, I'm hitting the JML team, I'm, getting the Malgus team up and running. I've been putting so many resources into characters, thinking that, these characters are going to take me over the edge. Everyone thinks that, oh, if only I could unlock the next Galactic Legend, if only I could unlock the next Legendary. If I had those Smuggler and Maldalorian teams maxed out, like I'm talking Relic 9 across the board, it wouldn't have played any part in this GAC whatsoever. And a lot of times you guys are going to run into the case where you have enough teams and it's hard for us to focus on not farming characters, because this, at the end of the day, we like to think this game is this, that, or the other, but it's a resource management game and a hero collector, and we want to collect heroes and manage our resources, but sometimes we collect more heroes and manage less resources. What I should have done is I should have identified, my Executor team could use a couple of relics. My BAM is finally Gear 12, thank God, but I need a couple extra, relics on my Empire fleet. I need a couple. I should probably Gear 12, if not relic, 1 or 2 Geonosians for defense. I should get the First Order fleet up and running. You're going to oftentimes hit a point, kind of like with Datacrons. This is a problem with Datacrons back in the last set, which kind of disappeared because of the gigantic Datacron nerfs. But there was a point where you out-Datacroned your roster for a lot of players who were taking Datacrons kind of seriously. And I'm not going to talk about them too much because I know you guys hate them. But you'd have more Datacrons that you could possibly use. Now, obviously, they took that away from us by completely gutting the resources and all of that stuff and making it almost impossible to effectively use these resources. But I feel like a lot of times we apply the same kind of logic to our characters, right? Like, yes, it would be awesome to have a Maul team and a couple of extra Smugglers for my Dash Rendar, Datacron team that's going to last for, 2 more months or something like that and be kind of useless after that. But I've gotten into this where I'm just going character, and I have neglected ships. As funny as that is to say from a player who has won and punched up so unbelievably based entirely on ships, my ships are shit. I mean, they're not shit, but like against a 9 million GP player, like compared to my opponent who has almost double my GP, they're bad. And obviously I'm never going to match these players in terms of characters. And for many of you guys, you're never going to fight a fair matchup, and you guys are never going to match your opponents in terms of characters as well. So it's important to recognize in your farming when you hit that point where, like, I have enough teams for offense, I have some good teams for defense. Now I just need to make sure that I'm getting those efficient full clears, right? To put the pressure on my opponent. All right, and this kind of goes back to a similar sentiment that very, very early game players have. Let's just pull up like the Core 8, for instance. The reason why like our offensive teams are CLS, Vader solo, and then like Bounty Hunters with Bosk lead early game. Like the reason those are the offensive teams is because undersized max banners, because you have recovery from Chewbacca. Solo max banners, undersized max banners with recovery from Bosk. Right? Like those teams give you the best possible chance to get the most banners on offense. Like we'll never be able to control what our opponents are going to attack. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we used to be in a place where you could put really strong defenses, and a lot of end game players, like if you're watching streams, will place really strong defenses. But we've kind of gotten to a point where, you know, unless you have a character or a team or a zone, for instance, that you know is going to shut down your opponent, like they're going to beat it, because in many cases, at least for good players, your opponent has so much more GP than you. They have so many more teams, they have so many more ships. So you're going to reach a point where, like where I'm at right now, like I don't need these extra 2 teams. I need these ships. I need a couple relics on my rebels for profundity. I got to make sure Outrider gets a 7 stars. When the event comes back around, I got to get a 5-star. I got to bump up some relics on my Malevolence, on my Negotiator, on my God, something that really pissed me off is this Empire team. Like, if I'm fighting, well, I'll never fight a 5 million GP player. I never fight 6 or 7 million GP players. But let's say like a mid to low 8 million GP player. Like, that's where this Empire team, while it's efficient in terms of resource allocation to winning battles, it's bad banners because they're so weak, and it's just not cutting it anymore, right? So that was a huge error in my own game plan. I kind of got the fog of war that a lot of people get, where they're, you know, character, and yeah, we're punching up 3 million, we're punching up 4 million, sometimes punching up 5 million GP against these players, right? And these extra characters aren't coming in where we need them, right? Like, maybe you can place an extra couple of defensive teams, but at this point, like, you saw my defense. Like, there was I placed this one like random like relic bounty hunter team because it's just waste. These are just characters that I can't use, and I don't have datacrons to them, and I don't have teams to them, so I'm like, fuck, I'll just place them on defense, right? The only other relic I placed on defense was like this Mommy Mon Mothma team, but this is not doing anything, right? So it's like, yeah, a Maldalorian team would be awesome, but let's say I flex a Maldalorian team to defense because I have enough teams on offense, right? What's that going to do, right? Like, he's fighting me with 6 Galactic Legends, Malgus, you know, all the Core 8, all the Backbone, all the Conquest. Like, no one extra team, as much as we like to think, is going to turn the tide. But you know what can turn the tide? Fucking the Executor, the Profundity, making sure your Empire fleet is up and running. I do roster reviews all the time. I know I've been really busy because of work, but when I do roster reviews, still to this day, people who could have had Interceptor easily months and months ago still don't even have it unlocked, right? Like, the number one most valued thing in the game in terms of resources to allocate to how viable it is, the number one most valuable thing in the entire game, and people still aren't doing it. And I know that's because it's a ship and it's not sexy and a lot of people just don't care. But let's say you're a good player. Let's say you have a great account. You're going to punch up. You're going to get to this point where the characters are no longer going to really be cutting it, right? Like, adding a Galactic Legend to my roster, like if I could just magically have Lord Vader or Rey or SLKR or Seed or whatever, that's not going to change. That's still not going to change the tide of battle. It's, believe it or not, an extra Galactic Legend just poof right now popping into my account. It's not going to change the tide of battle against these 9 million GP players. It's just not. Even if I place everything on defense, 6 GLs, like, there's nothing they can do. Oftentimes they say 4 for offense or 3 for offense, or they put all on defense. Like, it doesn't matter. It just comes down to ships. My channel's dying. Subscribe to save me. I love you. Bye-bye.